Welcome to the ADHD coaching call on productivity through simplicity. I am friends with Tyler. I have worked with Tyler for several years now inside Keller Williams. However, I have a background in a lot of things, starting with education. I've taught every grade level, every subject in pretty much every type of school, and then worked in real estate for a while in terms of leadership, as well as getting my license before migrating into being a coach. And the reason that is I realized that I really like helping people establish what their vision is, but then also finding a path through the weeds and the chaos of life, or the ADHD, and actually getting to that goal that they set for themselves. So if there's anything that I can do, or if I say something during this that resonates and you want to have a further conversation, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email's here, really easy, jess@jesswebber.com, or my Instagram. Happy to DM that way as well, with the idea that I'm just here to help you hopefully simplify whatever you're planning in Q4 or in next year in 2025, so that you can actually accomplish those goals more efficiently, more quickly, while not killing yourself in the meantime with too much on your plate or too much overwhelm. So I know, as somebody who has ADHD myself, that every time I go to something, people always have great content in their slides, and I'm scrambling trying to write all that down. And so what I wanted to do is make this really easy on you guys. If you want a copy of the slides that I'm sharing, you are most welcome to get a copy of them, either by taking the QR code and grabbing the link, or if you email me, jess@jesswebber.com. And the only thing you need in the subject line is the word simple. I've got an automatic email reply set up, so it'll just email you a copy of this presentation as well. And you can either go along with it while we're chatting, or you can grab it at the end if that helps you out, if there's something in it that's relevant to you. So I am an open book, and I truly want to make this interactive. So please do not hesitate during this to unmute, but I kind of have a framework for what I thought we would talk about. And I really wanted to start with this quote of: "The art of living a good life is more about subtraction than addition." The author of this book, Greg McKeown, it's his book Effortless, and I'll drop that link in the chat as well. But it's one of those things where I know, as somebody with ADHD, I tend to overcomplicate everything. I tend to make things more complex than they need to be, because my brain is moving so fast. I'm trying to think strategically about all the things that could possibly be, plan for every eventuality, and then make the best course of action moving forward. And so what I wanted to kind of just discuss is, how do we become more productive by actually doing less, because we're doing that right thing? So this book is right here. There's that Amazon link if anybody wants to grab a copy of it. I reread it this morning because it's just one of my favorites. And also I leverage my ADHD to read really fast. But it's a good one in terms of helping you understand not only the mindset, but the actions to take moving forward, so that you can actually be productive and implement. So the objectives that I kind of have for the first part of this call are: what's the problem, what's the mindset behind it, and then the actions in order to overcome the problem solutions. And then I'll leave room at the end for as much Q&A as we have time for. But never in any of things that I'm talking about should you ever feel like you can't stop me or throw something in the chat to have a conversation around. Okay? So first and foremost, the problem of productivity through simplicity. As I said, we like to make things complex, especially those with ADHD. So if you've been in any sort of, planning or time management type class, whether it's something through Keller Williams or another agency of some kind, you may have heard this analogy of the rocks. It comes from Stephen Covey, And we often say, okay, well, let's put the big rocks first, and then we'll worry about the sand and the pebbles afterwards. The problem is, as solo entrepreneurs, small business owners, we often find ourselves, we've got too many rocks and not enough jar, right? And when that happens, we tend to feel a lot of different things. When those rocks pile up, we'll procrastinate and avoid them, or we'll be so overwhelmed by them that we may struggle to focus because we're constantly thinking about all the other rocks. There's a giant pile sitting next to me. It's not just one or two. We will get annoyed with one and we'll task switch between them. And that task switching can actually interrupt our thought patterns, interrupt our processes, and slow us down. Or we may just completely shut down because we're overwhelmed. So what I want to do is really just kind of talk about how do we simplify or remove that complexity so that we don't feel like we have too many rocks and we feel like we can accomplish those rocks at the same time. So another quote that I love is, when we remove complexity, even the slightest effort can move what matters forward. And the reason I like this is I know I am personally guilty of a whole lot of analysis paralysis. I can sit there and I can create a to-do list. I can create whatever beautiful spreadsheet I need to create. I can build a perfect calendar. But at the same time, if I look at it and I've complicated it, a lot of times I'll be like, yep, nope, I'm done. I don't want to do anything more because thinking about it was too painful. And so really what I want to do is look at some tips and tricks around the mindset of this. And so that way, then we can take action on it, because even the slightest small little trick or thing can change that mental block and allow us to move forward and then make progress on whatever we're trying to accomplish. So first and foremost, in that removing the complexity, I want you to think about what it's like trying to utilize effort or willpower. Most of the time, what'll happen is the more complex something is, the more effort we're going to have to put into it, and we're not going to see as great of results because we're spending too much time juggling that complexity, dealing with that complexity, and trying to, pull up our bootstraps or put on our superhero cape, whatever analogy you like best, to try to get that thing, let's say, up a hill, right? And so tons of effort, tiny results. The whole point of simplifying allows us to completely flip the script or invert this image. And so then if we can simplify what we're doing, we can put in a lot less effort because things are easier. And that will create that momentum for more results, massive results. So every time you catch yourself feeling like you're putting in a whole lot of work into something, I'll challenge you to kind of pause and be like, is this a massive effort or a tiny effort thing? Is this a simple or a complex thing? Find a way to audit that, and you'll find that it becomes a lot simpler when you can start going through things and being like, I should not be expending this much effort and energy in this particular instance. So what do I need to do to change that and flip it from an uphill battle to a downhill one? Okay, so mindset. I know this sounds a little airy-fairy sometimes, but truly everything begins in the brain, and then we move from there to the action. So the first thing that I love to think about is inverting the feeling or the question that comes into my brain. So if I'm looking at something and I sit there and I say, oh, this is difficult, this is going to be hard. If you can invert that and say, what if this could be easy? Flip the script on it and invert your perspective. A lot of times you can identify the next right thing that's going to make the thing simpler. So if, losing weight is really difficult because of X, Y, and Z, by saying, what if this could be easy? I could say, okay, well, what is the easy thing with losing weight? Let's see, it's starting with diet, or it's starting with adding a walking treadmill to my desk. I pick something that I can easily accomplish, and it gives me that momentum and flips it from uphill to downhill. So inversion is a great tool that we can use in life and business to really kind of found this thing is hard versus this thing can be easy. Okay. The other gamification thing that I really love to do, mindset wise, is if it's a non-preferred task, which let's face it, as somebody with ADHD, I have a lot of those. They're not enjoyable. They don't give me that dopamine hit that I really want. But if you can flip the script and make it something fun or pair it with something fun, it can drastically change the way that you feel about that problem or that thing that you need to get done, that big rock that's looming over you. So a lot of times, in the neurotypical worlds, they'll say, okay, create a reward system for yourself. So it's an, if you do this, then you get this situation. What I have found is I will delay that because I'm not getting that gratification fast enough, and I will procrastinate on it. So a great tip here or trick here is if you can reduce that lag measure and actually pair the reward with the problem at the same time, or the thing that you're trying to do, then it actually gives you an even bigger dopamine hit and you get the thing done faster. A great example of this would be, I really don't enjoy cleaning, let's say, especially when it comes to my toddler's toys and things. And getting him to do it is extremely painful because let's face it, no 3-year-old really wants to spend like time sorting their toys, cleaning them up. They'd much rather play. But if you turn it into a game or a dance party with fun Disney music, suddenly it becomes a pleasurable thing. And then the problem almost disappears because you created an environment where you enjoy it and you have fun. So anytime that you can actually reduce the pain by adding pleasure at the same time, it's going to really help the situation. Another great tip or trick for this is releasing the negative feelings about what you are lacking. So, we have this great phrase, what you focus on expands, that I've heard many different ways in many different classes, but the visual here really helps put that in perspective. So if you focus on what you have, then you won't be as distracted by the things that you lack. And you may also find or gain those things that you're lacking. And so again, flip that script, not what am I missing, but what do I have? This works in terms of gratitude. This works in terms of business. So, it's not that I'm short X amount of closings at the end of this year. It's that I've had the opportunity to impact the lives of this many families. And I look forward to impacting this many more because I've already got set up, closings set up for next year. So when you can flip that script again and release the negative and focus kind of on that positive, then you're going to find that exudes, or, in anything else you do, that gratitude, that feeling of abundance, and that will help lead you to other things. Again, like I said, it can feel a little airy-fairy, but at the same time, practicing that, manifesting that can actually make a big difference in your behavior, your mindset, and your environment. Okay. This is one of my favorite ones to talk about when it comes to things, built-in pauses. If you've noticed, how long have I been going? 14 minutes, and I've barely taken a breath. I have to practice this myself all the time. You have to find places in your day, your week, your month, your quarter, whatever, to actually create space for you to decompress, to rest, to breathe. Oops, I forgot to change part of this. This is what happens when I make these at 5 a.m. But truly, audit your calendar is what this should say instead of what you focus on expands. Audit your calendar and build in rest time. So what I'll challenge you to do is, I actually, on this wall right here that you can't see, I have a year at a glance calendar literally on my wall. And what I do is I start out, I actually have Q4, so the rest of this remaining year and all of 2025 there. So 5 quarters that I look at. I go in and I immediately grab a marker and I cross out every single day that is a holiday or a day that I want to take off, like around Christmas, around Thanksgiving, family vacations, anything that's important to me. So what I'm doing is I'm condensing how many working days I have left. Then I go in and I put in any work-related events that are super important to me. So right now I've got, like KW's family reunion or mega camp. I've got another conference that I want to go to because I feel like that's relevant to me and my business. I put all those in there as soon as I know those dates. Okay. So I start big, I start macro, and then I start building out my ideal day or my ideal week, and I have a start time and a stop time. So I create space for myself, whether it's on a larger scale, making sure that I have breaks throughout my year and throughout my quarters, to even in my day. When am I actually going to start looking at emails and working? When am I going to conclude my day? And I make sure I set expectations with my clients. Hey, family time happens after 6 p.m. or whatever it is. I will return your inquiry the next business day. But when you create space for rest, you actually allow yourself to be that much more productive. And so this is actually one of those classes that I've waxed eloquent on. I've taught whole classes just on how to organize your calendar. And so I'm passionate about building in rest because it only makes you a better person. Okay. No, just I'll sleep when I'm dead. That is not a badge to be earned. Okay. I would much rather you brag about, I do the same amount of business in half the time that I did last year, because you've been more intentional with your time. You've simplified and scaled your business, and you've learned really how to behave in a way that, better suits the goals that you have for yourself, personally and professionally. Additionally, I will challenge you to pay attention to clarity. So, like I said earlier, ADHD brains, I can think about a million things faster than most people can think about one. And with that comes amazing creativity, amazing opportunity. I mean, I consider ADHD my superpower. And yet it can also create that complexity. It can create that confusion. And it can create a little bit of chaos if you don't slow down and actually reflect on it and release it. So I'll challenge you, if you're finding yourself feeling frazzled, busy, overwhelmed, find a way to release it, to reflect on it, and gain clarity in it. So I'm a big tech tool person. So what I do is I use Google Tasks or Google Keep, if you like the notes feature. And I literally brain dump everything I need to into that. So every time I have an idea, instead of holding on to it, ruminating, all of that kind of stuff, I will actually sit down, pull out my phone, my tablet, my computer, since it's accessible across all of them, and dump that thought into there. That lets me move on from it, move past it, because I have intentional time set to go back and look at it. And that helps you, again, feel like you're less busy or less chaotic if you've practiced this intentionality and helped yourself kind of get through that chaos. Okay. So that's a lot on mindset. Before I head into actions, does anybody have any comments, questions, concerns, curiosities?
Hey Jess,
Hey,
GC here from Miami. How are you?
well, how are you?
Good. This is so awesome, and you're speaking so organized, and I'm like so jealous because it sounds like amazing. It's very easy to follow you. I have a quick question. When you were saying about dumping your thoughts, what is it? What's the program that you're using when you have
Yeah,
a
so I 100% use Google products. So
Okay.
Google Calendar has a task feature built in. And actually, I can show you that towards now or later. I was trying to stay on task, but
No, we could
um,
do it later. I wrote it down. It's all
yes,
good.
yes. So
Thank
Google
you.
Tasks is paired with your Google Calendar, and it has its own app as well. And so I literally have the app on my phone, the app on my tablet, and then I have it as a sidebar on all of my Google products on my computer. And so I brain dump into that, and then you can click and drag and organize that brain dump. And so that way you can, again, be more intentional. Is it something I need to keep? Is it something I need to save for later? Or is it something that I really just needed to release and let go of and not actually ever touch again? So that's what I would use there for sure. Anyone else? GC, thank you. I'm, like I said, happy to have a bigger conversation on that later. I want to make sure I give space to pause and breathe. I know I'm throwing it a lot at you. Okay. Well, again, let's talk through a little bit more actions you can take, a little bit more behavior once you kind of get in the habit of those mindsets. And then we can go into nitty-gritty details after that. Okay. So problem is complexity. Mindset, you got to flip the script. Actions are the behaviors that we need to do. Yes, Mindy, the slides are available and I'll show you how to get them right at the end of this. Or if you email me, jess@jesswebber.com, and you put in the word simple into your subject line, you'll get an automatic copy emailed back to you. So trying to keep it easy, but actions that help you simplify. The first thing that I will challenge you on is get it done. Define what done is. Not perfect, done. Because I know that I am a person who loves to present a perfect product at all times. And I am constantly thinking about the thing that I just built or the thing that I just shared with somebody. And I'm like, oh, I could have done that better. Could have done that differently. Could have done that more precisely, whatever. And so I'll challenge you that when you've got this big list or a big idea, create a true definition of what done looks like in that day for yourself. Not done 6 weeks from now, not done in 2026, but create a definition of done for the day. And that way it will help you decide what is actually necessary and right versus what you just want to kind of play with. Example, I had all of these ideas for today's presentation in my head at 5 a.m. this morning. I gave myself 30 minutes to make you a slideshow. It's not perfect. I would have fixed that typo earlier had I looked at it, but I was out of my time block. Point being, I gave myself a definition of done and I did the thing, and you don't have pretty animations. You don't have videos built in. All these things that I would add to this in a future date, but I've created something that works in the moment. So create a definition of done. Losing weight is not that. Saying I am going to lose 5 pounds this month is a better definition of done. Now that's a month, but again, it's still creating parameters for yourself and guidelines or rails for yourself to keep you a little bit more focused and a little less distracted by making it look a certain way or behave a certain way. So definition of done. Another thing that I think this sounds stupidly obvious, but yet I know we fail at this all the time, is please just get started with it. Don't get caught in analysis paralysis. Because most often what we will do is we'll sit there and we'll think about all the things that need to be done, and then we'll get overwhelmed by it. So, example was the office that I'm standing in. Before I had a standing desk, I had a massive wooden desk that was left in this room by the previous homeowners. And it was because it couldn't be pulled out of this room by the door. I don't know how they got it in here. I guess they built it in here and then left it, but it literally was so large, it could not be removed from this room. Well, to me, that was overwhelming because in my head, I'm like, okay, well, I've measured it, but I need to get a chainsaw to cut it. Do I need a dumpster, or do I need to call the trash haulers? Like, who's going to help me with this? Because I can't lift it by myself. And I would ruminate on all these different things when I really just needed to get started. I needed to figure out what is the minimum viable action necessary to begin. Well, the minimum viable action necessary to begin was find a tape measure and double check that I couldn't get the desk out. Tape measures aren't that hard. As real estate agents, as many of you are, you hopefully have like half a dozen of them floating in your car somewhere, and then another one in a purse and a backpack and in back pocket and, diaper bag. But point being, I needed to go find a tape measure. I didn't need to go down this massive rabbit hole of all the things and try to adjust for every one of them in the same moment, because I realized once I got a tape measure, I only needed to cut that desk into 2 pieces. Well, great. I don't have a chainsaw. What is my next minimum viable action necessary? Borrow my father-in-law's chainsaw. Okay, great. Now we cut it in 2 pieces. Oh, when it's 2 pieces, it's not as heavy. Okay, my husband and I can carry it. Oh, great. We're hiring a dumpster for something else later. We'll just keep it in the garage until we get the dumpster. All of those things that I was ruminating on didn't actually have to be a problem if I'd gone and gotten the dang tape measure months prior. But it took me almost a year of hitting my knees on that desk every single day because I work from home to finally get rid of that desk. So again, take the first obvious action. What's the first step? That's the minimum viable step. So something simple. And then the second piece of this is leveraging microbursts. So example, like I was saying in that, was get a tape measure. Great. Okay. And I could also in the same microburst after I measured, make sure all the drawers were empty and pulled out. That's a small thing that's not overwhelming. So that way, then when I was ready for the next big thing, which was saw it in half, all of that stuff was done. But I had leveraged a little bit of energy that I got from completing the first task to get more of that task done. So start somewhere and identify what is your minimum viable action, and then try to tack on little microbursts after that. And you'll feel like you gain way more momentum faster because you won't be as overwhelmed by all the things. My favorite word, simplify. So like I said, in my past life, I was a teacher, and I actually taught math and I taught history, 2 people's either most loved or most hated subjects. And I taught them at the same time. And I did that because I loved helping people take what felt complex and break it down into something they could juggle, manage, process, or use. And this is no different than what I'm doing for you today. More often than not with ADHD, I just gave you the example of getting my desk out of my office. I think of 47 steps. And if you asked me to write them, they'd be in great details. They'd be documented with diagrams, pictures, spreadsheets, math, etc. And nobody needs that. My husband didn't need a spreadsheet to how to get the desk out of my office. My father-in-law didn't need the calculations on how much gas I'd use inside his chainsaw, right? And yet, more often than not, because our brains move so fast, we have a habit of overcomplicating any steps that we're trying to take. I'm like, I can go get this tape measure, but then I still want to overcomplicate it with steps. So just like the minimum viable action, think what minimum steps are required. It was measure, cut, drag out of my office. That's 3 steps. I didn't need to ruminate on all the other things. So consider whatever you're trying to do or whatever you're trying to have somebody else do for you, and give them the least amount of steps in the simplest form possible. So measure, cut, move is way easier than giving directions on how to measure, what to measure, where to measure, and why to measure, right? I just multiplied that times 5 when that was completely unnecessary. So think about, where can I cut back? Where can I reduce? Another quote I didn't include here that I absolutely love is the fashionista Coco Chanel. She was once quoted as saying, before you leave the house, look in the mirror and take one accessory off, because less is more. So like as a woman, you might originally have this really cute outfit. You've got a necklace, you've got a bracelet, you've got rings, you've got earrings, you've got a hairband or something. Coco Chanel is saying, take it off, less is more. Maybe you only needed that necklace. Maybe you only needed those earrings, and those become the statement piece of everything. This is the same thing. If you're building something or communicating something, simplify it. I have a habit of every time I write an email explaining something, I don't click send right away. I actually go back and read it and see if I can cut out a few sentences. Same thing with text messages, especially if I'm doing dictating to my text messaging app. I will rattle and then I'll let it sit, and then I'll look back and I'll be like, nope, that was too much. How can I reduce this to be more clear? And Mindy, I totally feel that in the tend to make it more complicated, but that's the whole point, is less is more in this instance. And the thing that we need to remember is that we're thinking probably at 10 times the speed of everybody else. And so we need to give them 1/10 of what our brain is doing. So simplifying in your communication is a key element of being able to take good, clean, concise actions and remove some of that complexity. Okay. Again, progress. This is another thing that I have to remind myself of a lot. Taking action is better than not taking action. So even the absolute worst thing you could ever have is better than not having it all because you're just thinking about it. So I will challenge you that whenever you're hung up on something, you're like if you have something really aspirational, you want to write a book, having a rough draft, or even what the author that I was quoting earlier calls a zero draft, where it's not even something you would ever send to somebody, but putting words on paper is better than having no words at all, right? So business, creating a postcard, a marketing piece, a social media post, something is better than nothing, because the great thing about doing the thing, doing the action, is that you will gain momentum from doing it. And honestly, one of my favorite phrases is consistency compounds. So taking the necessary minimum viable action, doing it simply and doing it repeatedly is going to give you the momentum that you need to get you to where you want to go. So if you constantly tell yourself, okay, the first step that I take in anything is going to be the worst it's ever going to be, and it's only going to get better from here, it removes a lot of those beliefs or those negative mindsets that you might have about perfectionism or things like that. And it allows you to actually take a step forward, because you're like, okay, I'm going to make progress and then I'm going to improve upon it. Okay. And then I'll also challenge you about pace. So it goes right hand in hand with that progress piece, is what do you need to do to make it smooth? So, as those with hyperactivity in the ADHD world especially know, you want to go really hard, really fast when you get excited or interested in something, and then you might hit a wall and burn out because you've gone too hard and too fast. What I challenge you to do is create a floor and a ceiling, your lower and your upper bounds. So if this is lead generation, for example, and they say an average of, let's say, 20 contacts a day, that might seem overwhelming. But what you can do is you can tell yourself, okay, well, my minimum, my floor is 2 contacts in the day. My upper bound, my ceiling, is 30 contacts in a day. You're going to strive for what you can get done. But if you create that upper and lower parameter, it allows you to pace yourself. So that way you don't feel like you have to do a bold 100 every day for 3 days and then you burn yourself out. If you create consistency, it will compound, and that pacing will become more habitual and more smooth. And it will help you feel like you move forward. Sprint really hard and then burn out and have a long recover, and then run really fast, sprint really hard, and then take an even longer time to recover, and creating that kind of negative cycle of start, stop, start, stop. So pacing is really relevant and important here as well. Please don't hesitate to reach out if I can be helpful. I appreciate you guys showing up and letting me babble, because like I said, this is something that I'm definitely passionate about helping people with. So I will let you guys have back the rest of your day, and I hope to see you all later. Bye.